Hi, everyone. Welcome to one more episode of What If You Live to Be 100. Today's is a very special episode because I have a guest on this episode this time. And the guest is none other than my very dear friend, Ashok Venkatramani. Ashok has had a brilliant professional career. He's spent a lot of time with Unilever across various roles. And after that has been in the media industry for many, many years, heading Star News and thereafter the ABP News Network as CEO, as well as Z Media. And after all that long professional career, he has turned to entrepreneurship and running a very interesting business in the space of analytics, media analytics, etc. But that's his professional side. I have known him since the time we were in college together. We were at VJTI, did our engineering there. And thereafter, Ashok has gone to IIM Ahmedabad for his MBA. And he's also done an advanced management program from Harvard. With all that, his career has also seen him be at various places across the country. And today, in fact, we're going to focus a lot more around, the home and what makes the perfect home, or is there something like a perfect home, especially for this phase of life when we are in the 50s and 60s. So with that little background, I want to get started with Ashok. And first of all, welcome him on this podcast show. Hi. So Ashok, at the outset, you want to talk about, you recently moved into this new house. I mean, and we know it's a lovely place here. What are your initial thoughts just about the various places that you've lived in? Just let our viewers know where all you have stayed, right from childhood, and, what has each home sort of given you or left an imprint on you? And then, now that you are here, how did the journey happen just from your home's point of view?
Okay, so I grew up in a very, very small place called Kalyan, just on the outskirts of Bombay, which is where my dad was working, and we were living in a colony. So for the first 18 odd years of my life, I have actually lived in a small colony on the outskirts of a very large city. And somehow living in the city in those days looked highly aspirational. Though we were living in a small colony on a lake shore, full of greenery, away from the din of the city, studying in a private school just next door, and with full club facilities, playing facilities, and all of that. All the right things we should need for growing up. Yet in those days, Bombay was highly aspirational because we always felt that we are living in deep suburbs and away from the magical place of a very large city like Bombay. I think once I moved into corporate life, my job took me literally everywhere. Bangalore, Chennai, twice, Delhi, Calcutta. Of course, Ahmedabad, I studied for 2 years. So, I think one of the things which a transferable job ingrains into you is that adaptability, that the place is not important, but building a network around you wherever you go and quickly adapting was the need of the hour. And I've done that for almost my entire career. No place was more than 3 years. So not just me, but also my family. So somewhere that kind of got ingrained, and hence the need to build an ecosystem around you of friends and friends, in all these cities. And today I'm grateful that in not just these cities, but also in other places as far out as Los Angeles, Dallas, New York, San Francisco, I've got a cluster of friends who make me feel like home the moment I land there. And I think that's what I think a lot of the staying has taught me.
Right.
I think contextualizing it to your own theme, I think it's not so much the place, but what you make of the place, and more importantly, what you create in the place you go.
Right.
I think becomes very important, and I think that's a lesson I carry. And I think as I move forward into the 60s and 70s, the value of that is all evident today.
Right. Right. Okay, got it. Yeah, nice. You said that wherever you have moved and wherever work and life has taken you, you manage to create a good ecosystem and friends and support and all that. So as life progresses from an age perspective, uh, is it becoming is it still easy enough as it was when in earlier days? So earlier days, there was a work ecosystem, and you would have work colleagues naturally, and you had maybe kids going to school, and so sometimes parents of kids and all that becomes a certain initial trigger to build a network. And now at this point of time, now we recently moved at this age. Has it been equally easy to kind of create a local ecosystem? Because also the need for something more local, more closer increases, because sometimes, at this point of time, you might have an odd health issue where you need a quick support, you need a local GP you can trust and whatnot. So has it been equally easy at this point, or was it easier earlier because there were other ways in which?
No, I think what happens is, firstly, maintaining the ecosystem requires a lot of efforts. So the ecosystem doesn't happen on its own.
Right.
And I think that's the first thing we need to remember. Secondly, so when I say you need to invest in the ecosystem, whether it is going out of the way to befriend, whether it is retaining those friendships, investing in those friendships, simple things like remembering dates, remembering special occasions of those friends, keeping in touch, making that extra effort to keep in touch when you actually land up into a city where you used to live in the past, going out of the way to actually going, meeting and catching up with those people is what I mean by saying investing. To my mind, that investment is very important.
Right.
Often what happens is when we are younger, we forget to invest. In fact, both me and my wife, we feel we take a lot of pride in the fact that we never miss occasions of friends, whether it's special occasions like kids getting married or losing somebody near and dear. We always make it a point to actually travel, go meet, invest, and they may have been friends many years back, but we still haven't lost that touch.
Yeah,
that investment, what it does is that it we don't realize it, but that investment actually grows. It helps you grow relationships. It also helps you strengthen your own ecosystem. It also helps you in cultivating a nice habit into yourself. That person, you're naturally made like that. You're not, remember today, forgotten tomorrow kind of a person. I think we have consciously done that. That's become a way of life for us. And I think a lot of the reason why this ecosystem for us is still intact is because we have invested in it consciously. Not with an intention of realizing something out of it at a later stage in life. Obviously, you don't remember all that, but it's just that we met good people, nice people, and we said, why lose good people in your life? So we retain that part. That's, I think, at the heart of the ability to retain this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Today, when we look back and when we are taking some important calls, whether it is to do with we want to go to settle down, and like for example, we decide to come and settle down in Bombay, despite a lot of the decision making on why Bombay and why not Delhi or why not Chennai or why not Bangalore was driven by actually where we felt the most comfortable in terms of our own ecosystem, where we knew that we would take to that city like a fish to water. I think those are factors which actually played a lot in terms of choosing the colleagues finally come back and settle down in Bombay. Having said that, we are acutely conscious that where we are and how we are at 60 may not be the same as how we are and where we are at 70.
Okay.
And which is why, despite now settling down in Bombay, we have not lost contact with Delhi friends or Bangalore friends or even San Francisco friends or New York friends. So I think we kept our mind open. Okay, we have not locked anything. We still kept our mind open.
Okay. No, it's actually, that's a very interesting point, and we are going to pick that up again in the sense that, sometimes one would feel that when you're at around 60, and especially if you choose to move and make a home somewhere, one would often think that, okay, this is where now I want to spend the rest of my life. And, here's Ashok telling us that, hey, not so, not necessarily so. So it's a very interesting cue. But I want to actually make sure that we appreciate what bigger point Ashok made in what he just spoke is about the investment in relationships. And for Ashok and Purnima, his wife, it didn't start in recent days. There was no sort of, quid pro quo angle that, I should invest so I'll get it back. I mean, it was a very natural thing. And I know him, I know that because he said, but I also know that because I know him for a long time. And they're always there for occasions and with friends and all that. And that he just mentioned. Now, what do we take back from there? When we are especially focused at this point of time in life, hopefully many have done what Ashok has done. And maybe some of us didn't do enough of that. Is it too late? Well, you can't undo what already is gone by. But if you are in a place today, and if you're in the 50s or 60s, there's still a lot of life ahead of you. And you want to be sure that there is a good circle of friends, a support system. And it's not late to be sure that there is a certain sincere approach to building the network and investing and nurturing that. So, that's a little away from our conversation around the home piece, but that was something very interesting which came out. And I thought, let's recognize this very interesting learning. But going back to the home discussion that we're having, so, obviously, you have done it interestingly. You have moved at many places and you're reasonably comfortable at various places. But let's look at an average person in kind of our age group. And you and I both know there are many people who lived in a particular place for many years. I mean, maybe they didn't need to, they were working there, they were doing a business or something. And in those years of growing up of sort for yourself and your family, generally what used to be the important thing about the location was, say, proximity to work, proximity to children's schools and colleges and all. And those were central locations generally. Only thing is, over the years, those became more and more sort of crowded and, a lot of noise and honking and all. And of course, all the green spaces and all disappeared, especially in a city like Mumbai, like where both of us live. Given that, should you're hitting at about 60, 65, all that support system is right there, your friends, your closest, your doctors and whatever, that you feel that, oh, I'm so dependent on them. And yet, does that become reason enough to continue being there because you've always been there? Or how easy or difficult would be for somebody to think about a change? And is it even necessary,
So, I'll give this response in structure it a bit. I think the first thing we need to understand is post 60, there is a period called active life, okay, and then there is a rest of the life. I'm calling it passive life, for lack of a better word. Active life is when you're fit to travel, fit to eat what you want, by and large okay to move around, and flexible, both physically, mentally stable, and so on and so forth. And I'm saying I would probably give ourselves maybe another 15 years, maybe if we are lucky, 20 years, not more than that. After that, what I call is a passive life, where you're alive, but you, God knows what ailment you have, whether you're mobile, not mobile, your spouse is mobile, not mobile, you're dependent on one another. If one of us, you is not well, a lot of it hampers. So I'm calling it that as a passive life. I think I would handle the two firstly differently.
Okay.
When we are in the active life, we, I think, value our independence. We would love to give our kids their independence, and and would be very happy to stay where we have built our own ecosystems and are very comfortable in our ecosystem. So, for example, I built my ecosystem in Bombay. I've got friends. I got really good friends, and they give me not just company, but they give me other things which I don't have, and I'll come to that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, I built the ecosystem, and my kids are away in the US. I don't want to go to the US at this point in time because I'm very happy and I think I can take care of myself, both me and my wife. So we are very happy. And I'm calling it during the active life. We value the independence. We love the ecosystem. We love the flexibility, and we would like it that way. Uh, when it comes to the passive life, let's say, at whatever point in time in life, one of us is ailing or is not there, or we lose one of us, and or one of us is indisposed and are no longer mobile. That's when I think the entire criteria for what we are seeking changes. Um, During the active life, for example, I would loathe to go to a old age home. Yeah, I'm calling it old age home. A lot of people get offended by that use of the word, but I'm calling it old age home because I find that we're still very active, we are flexible, we're mobile, and I find that those kind of places are more for people with passive life. I find a lot more cynicism there. I would like to, at this stage of active life, interact with people younger than me,
Right.
not older than me.
Right.
Interact with people who are more active than me, not less active than
Right.
me, and so on. So I think during the active life, I wouldn't look at something like that. But when I am moving on to my passive life, depending on the situation, depending on the fact that where my children are. So if my children are settled in the US and I'm settled here and I'm dependent on somebody, I don't have much of a choice. Either I move and stay close to them and compromise with a lot of other things like ecosystem not being there. I have nothing more to do. Mentally, I wither much faster. Physically, I wither anyway. Uh, Either I choose that life, or I say that, listen, I don't want to let go. I don't want to do any of those. I stay back, but then I suffer because I'm alone. I'm dependent on neighborhood. I'm dependent on who have the money, attendance. When I stay someplace where there's a doctor nearby, mentally I'm lonely. I don't have my near and dear ones anywhere near me. So I think I would first of all compartmentalize it. I think, which is why I said earlier also that I'm flexible. And I think one of the things I would advise is stay flexible. Treat, firstly, I'm saying treat active life, passive life as very different because the criteria is going to be different. In your active life, uh, as well as in your passive life, be flexible because you do not know what's going to hit you.
Sure.
And how the challenges are going to come.
Sure.
And be prepared to let go of a few things. So there is not going to be anything ideal. It will be unrealistic to expect, let's say, when you're in your passive life, to your children to leave their lives in US or wherever they are and come all the way and settle down next to you. I think that will be selfish and that will be unfair. At the same time, if you choose to either stay back, you let go of, you have to compromise on a few things. You choose to go and stay closer to your children, then you compromise on a few other things. That flexibility, I think one has to maintain if one has to survive. And I think as long as we are mentally prepared to stay flexible and recognize that you can't have everything, best of everything, you need to let go of a few things. I think we should be okay.
So actually, I am thinking of three different rejoinders or further questions to what you just mentioned. Right, three things, and I'm going to put all the three out so that they are on the table, and then you can respond one at a time. The first one is that while talking about where to find home, right? I want to also look at the physical location. I mean, like say Mumbai is fine, but being where you are. So, like I give this example that I know people who are in who lived all their life, let's say on a very crowded MG road in Ghatkopar, right? Because work used to be there, kids' school used to be there, but it's only become increasingly crowded and noisy and all that. And here's a point of time in life where you're actually looking for some quiet, and you want that in an evening you can actually go down and take a little walk amongst the greens, and which is not there. So physical location is what I'm talking about. I understand the parts about the support system or where your friends and all, but that's like a little, when you say Mumbai, yeah, you have friends around, but every day. So every day is your day, your home, your compound or your location. So is it is it of interest to consider if somebody was in that kind of a location, realizing that as time goes, it's only getting worse and not better. So if today it is very crowded, it's going to like go out of control in matter of time. So do you keep bearing up with that because of other comfort, or you think about even at that point to think and move elsewhere in the city, maybe suburbs or whatever? So that is a physical location related question. The other, which you mentioned earlier, and again you brought up with the flexibility aspect to it, and you the way you separate active life and then a little passive life, is my concern that moving homes is always as much a physical, emotional, and all that baggage of it comes with it. And if one had to, mental readiness or flexibility apart, there's a huge sort of, displacement in all respects. From, you have a comfortable
Yeah.
corner in your house where you keep going and, you got used to it. Now, a new place, new system. So as we grow older, is it my sense is that it may become even more difficult to adjust because your like entire life, like I'd seen my dad, it was very tough for him to adjust because there was a place where he used to go, and then everything, whatever, all kinds of that. So that's the second thing. That is there a factor that the later that you, if you had to go somewhere, whether it is to the US to be closer to your kids or to wherever else, do we actually put it off till we are 75, 80 and then think about it? Because then, maybe our physical faculty, a lot of things might be lesser, and then, you adjust that. So that's a question. If one had to do, is it easier to do earlier? And the third question, of course, is, you know, I mean, generally speaking, from being close to kids, if one had to be, let's say it's the US and you had to be nearby, that for you, having spent most of your life in India, even though you may have friends and etc., but being there, there is a certain dependence on the system, maybe the kids, maybe the friends, and it's not as comfortable a social circle as you built here. The culture is also different. That is, may not be easy to just go to a neighbor and say hi, let's have a cup of tea. It may not be all that, and then driving around and all sorts of things may come in. So yeah, you want to be, so you know, as a part of the flexibility, you are willing to make that adjustment to be near the kids, but kids will also have their own life. They'll be married, they'll have kids, and they may need to move because their work and all may take them around. So you will keep going around and with them. So it's that tough part. There is a fourth one. I'm going to put it, but if we want, we'll remember the question and come back. Is what you mentioned about the old people, whom you call the old people. No, I'm not sure. So because I've been doing this podcast and all, I've been doing a little homework and looking at these. So first, they don't want to be called old people homes. They call them senior homes, and they're actually attracting people from early 60s, ideally, and they make it seem like a fun place to be. So they're very fancy. Also, I mean, you go to like a Dehradun and like 5-star senior homes, right? And everything you want, and and some of them, like in Bangalore, I know about these gated communities where there's one tower which is having this kind of people, but the rest of the towers have normal younger people. So you go down and take a walk in the park, there are all kinds of people. So you meet younger also and all that. So have you exposed, I mean, have you got an exposure to that? And, are you finding the relatability to the kind of old people home that you refer to versus this? And is that an option? Personally speaking, I feel it's a very interesting option in today's day with kids being all over the world and all that. But we go back to the first one. Sorry, I tabled all the questions, but
Yeah.
go back to the first one, which is physical location. What is the aspect, where you are? Because every day you are living here, wherever you are. So every day you need certain things which are like, which become interesting and necessity, which is a little quiet, a little calm, a little green, a little place to walk around and, do things. How important it is, and like,
No, I think, okay, let me try and answer you. You asked me 3, 4 questions. Hopefully, I won't forget. Let me first talk about the physicality. Yeah, very important. No question about it. I think the fact that we have seen 10 transfers in the last 30 years, which is on an average, literally once 3 years, means that we have not got stuck to one place. Yeah, which I know a lot of people have the problem with. We have built bonds, but we have not emotionally stuck to a place. So that flexibility we retain. Secondly, answering your physicality question, yeah, we did evaluate these 7, 8 cities we looked in, and we kept our evaluation very simple in terms of good hawa, good pani, and greenery. Yeah, if we have to just keep these three. We've been thankful that we have good hawa, good pani, and greenery in where we are living right now. Though I must put a caveat there that it's not permanent. Nothing is permanent. It's true. Uh, Delhi was a serious option, but then Delhi pollution clearly was a no-no. Bangalore remained a serious option. I still own a house in Bangalore, but given the traffic in Bangalore, and ability to commute from A to B in Bangalore is so bad that we actually somewhere down the line lost interest. Uh, Chennai we find too hot. So, we looked at all of that, but we finally said, yeah, maybe this is a place. We also, I think somewhere we're lucky that we got some very close friends who own very large farmhouses in Karjat. We have some close friend who owns a very large house in Alibag. And they're, ours is an open invitation. They come, they stay with us. When we go there, we stay with them. So if and when we feel like, going away for a little bit of greenery, we just need to take the car and drive down to one of these places. So, so we made that system there. That said, some of these factors did go in place right now. Since I am running a company and I need to still be in a Bombay, yeah, Bombay is an option, but we're not closed our mind here that 10 years down the line, if we need to revisit, we will revisit. I think somewhere I'm also answering your question number 4. While our evaluation of senior citizens' home is probably outdated, and these places are changing very fast. 10 years down the line, would we be open enough to consider it? Yeah, why not? I think that the willingness and ability to change and adapt to change is probably the only thing constant. Sure. And we are trying to retain that. At this point in time, I find them a little more cynical than what I think I am. I would much rather like to spend time in Yagaland. Uh, the other thing about I'm calling it not just physical but emotional and physical naps. Yeah, I mean, see, there are no right or wrong answers. Uh, like when I look at myself, I at a point in time chose to refuse foreign postings. Uh, because I was, my parents would have been alone, and my brother is already abroad. So we thought, and my mother was just recovering from a terminal ailment. So at that point in time, circumstances required that I stay close by, literally a flight away at best. So I actually refused. I chose, I made a career move saying I would only work in India. It's a conscious choice. Okay. Now I made that. I'm not making it, I'm not calling it, it's my personal choice. Now, I'm not expecting my kids to make that choice. Uh, at, for me, either to choose the option of staying back and hoping I'll manage, or saying, listen, I'll make my sacrifices and move to the US where my kids are. I think that's a call we need to take. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. Got it. Maybe at 70 or 75, whenever. Got it. But I think if we do have to make that choice, we will be mentally be ready to make that choice. Sure. So I think to answer that question, I think to each his own. But my only two bit is that getting stuck to something, either physically or emotionally, itself could be a handicap. Sure. And the only thing I think I would tell to myself and people of this age group is be flexible and be ready to adapt change. Because these things are not permanent. We think that once we retire, a lot of things will come to a standstill. It's not the case. That change keeps continuing. Probably that's a lesson I learned from having 10 transfers in 30 years. Right. Got it. I hope, yeah. So, no, absolutely, you did, but I want to just sort of kind of slightly summarize one of the things, as so very clearly Ashok mentioned to each his own. And at the same time, as you can hear that, from his evaluation of, having been in many cities,
evaluating where to kind of finally make home at this point. I mean, and he's of course flexible that 10 years later it could be something else. It did take into account the need for, hawa pani, greens and all that. In the connected point that, I've also been making is that you are at 60, you feel that, all my life I've lived here. Now, TK, traffic is there, this is there. Why should I, like, it's very hard to shift. But realize that that traffic, that noise, that air pollution is getting worse and not better. So if you have been there for the longest, doesn't mean that you should continue to be there, because you probably have 30, 40 years of life ahead of you in today's day. And you want to continue to suffer, and as you age and you have all the more need for a breathing cleaner air and drinking the safe water. Do you want to continue to be there? Now, what are the options? It's for everybody to evaluate to their comfort. Whether you find something interesting in the suburbs, whether you want to go to a small town, you evaluate a Nasik or something, and maybe you find some interesting places. Or like he mentioned, some of his friends are in Karjat or Alibag or something. Does that make sense for you? Or hey, if you feel it's worthwhile, evaluate a senior home in case you find it more suitable to your personal choice. So keeping those options open, and recognizing that there needs to be possibly a change if you're in a location or in a place where it's the environment is only getting worse. So don't remain stuck, and be flexible is one thing, right? So the one question, yeah,
One last point I want to add, which is to say that I think most of us will pull through the active life piece part. I think the challenge is going to come when the passive life part starts.
Exactly.
And that is a complete black box. That we do not know what is going to happen.
Exactly.
And our ability to navigate that part uh, is directly functional, is a direct correlation to how flexible we are. And when I see my father today, who after living in Bombay for 40 years, living and working in Bombay for 40 years, chose to move to Chennai, and because all his siblings were there. And today, uh, most of his siblings are not there anymore. They've all moved out to their children's place and so on and so forth. His own kids are no longer with him. We are all over the place. And the challenge he's grappling with is loneliness.
Yeah.
While all other things can be taken care of with money, whether it is attendant, cook, maid, all of that. I can't replace help his loneliness. And I think that I don't have a solution for, and I feel sorry for him. But then that's life. He has to learn to grapple with his loneliness, and he struggles with it.
Absolutely.
I don't know what we are going to grapple with.
Correct.
But I think how do we navigate that is, I think, the crucial part. And how do we keep ourselves open to be able to grapple that, I think, is a key part.
Absolutely. So, just to share a little perspective from my side on this subject is that, okay, wherever currently I reside, somewhere in my head, I feel that it's a place that I can potentially live the rest of my life. While, I mean, even I don't know where my daughters will be, because their work may take them anywhere. So those are only kind of, say, close relatives, relations that my brother is somewhere and others are there, but they're outside India anyway. So for me to port myself right now somewhere in that place doesn't sound at all an idea. So I need to figure my sort of home with my own personal, me and my wife's circumstances. And if the daughters happen to be nearby and they are around, it's a bonus. I would think of it like that. I don't want to constrain them from choosing to be wherever they want their life takes them. And what I'm trying to do consciously or otherwise also is to build a very good support network where I am. And thankfully, there is a good community which allows me to do that. So, sort of instead of feeling about, and there are lots. So, I mean, you make enough that even if a few move away or, do something, there is a certain system. So, it's a work in progress. Let's see how it goes. But I think the larger question, you said when you mentioned active life and sort of passive life and all, and, what happens at that, the entire focus of this podcast, when I say, what if you live to be 100, is 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 to address the multiple facets which impact our lives at this point. And one of them, I mean, which is lifespan versus health span. So while you referred to circumstances, like your father moved and the brothers are not there and whatnot, but it's also about how well, besides mental flexibility, is what our health span is going to be. If we're going to be continue to have a good physical health and all that, we might be able to keep doing all that. But God forbid, I mean, starts having some knee issues or some other issues, and then you feel a little hesitant to make those big moves. So, where, at what point of time you choose a home, at what point of time you will be flexible to move again, and all that is so much connected to a lot of these other factors as well. So, which is where this whole subject of this our conversation as well as the larger the podcast itself is around that. But so coming back, that part is what I still want to one more time get your view is that is there a factor to the age when you might choose to make moves, and how confident we would be about health, because one is to have mental flexibility. But if you say that 10 years later I may consider, or if at all, to relook at whether it's a senior home or to be close to your kids or something, you think that age matters, that or 70 will be still not a bad time, and like we should be all right at that point to think about one more shift? Well, I mean, again, sorry, before I'm telling a little bit more about myself. So we have a decent home, but sometimes we get tempted that shall we look for a bigger one? And the whole idea of finding a new place and doing it up from scratch in that whole 1 year of work and all is sounding very daunting today. I mean, when I did it. So all that, I mean, I think it'll become more daunting in another 5 years. So, like, you have a view on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, speaking for myself, we are through with that phase where um, there is there is this great urge to buy a new place, do up the place. In fact, if you see my house, we've chosen consciously to keep it minimalistic.
Yeah.
Nothing is there on the walls. We said just too tired of it. We must have, when we moved in here, almost two-thirds of all the stuff which used to adorn my walls, we gave it away. We just gave it away. And no emotional attachment here. Simple things like what car to drive,
Yeah.
and how many cars to keep, and should we have a driver? I mean, till a year back, I had 2 cars and a driver. Now I have only one car, and which is 14-year-old, and I just don't feel the need to change it, the urge to change it. So I'm saying we're through with all of that. And my personal view is that as we age, we will see the futility of having such materialistic attachments or materialistic quests. Like I'm sure many of us after 50 didn't feel the urge to work for money. We were working for other things, self-actualization, satisfaction, passion, whatever. Certainly not money. Just as that quest died on its own, this quest will also die. The materialistic urges will all die one by one, and I'm saying it's only a matter of time. For some, it's up to 60, for some, it's up to 50, for some, it's up to 65. I don't think those are going to be issues. In fact, some of my friends, and I'm just sharing anecdotal examples just to learn. They used to have multiple houses, and they moved very cleverly. They actually sold off everything, and now have just one small house in Delhi, but spend long time in other cities on Airbnb. So they go away during winter. They go away from the Delhi pollution and go and live in Goa for 2 months. And for 2 years they lived in Goa. This year apparently they're going to live in Mysore. Uh, Summers they go away to Europe and live for 2 months. So I'm just saying they've seen the value of not getting materialistically attached to a base,
Absolutely.
but keeping a small foothold
Yeah.
in some place,
Yeah.
like an anchoring.
Right.
and are very flexible. And we find great value in that. And I find it very inspiring and aspirational.
Absolutely.
So it goes against the very thread of actually being materialistic, looking for bigger houses, looking for a bigger car, and so on and so forth. I think we are through that phase in life. We don't.
Sure.
I mean, for us, a car is just something which can take us from point A to point B. And today, when you have drivers on hire, when you have Uber by the quality of cars and so on, why do you need all that? You don't need it. And when I look at my own sons, I know they are doing reasonably well. They don't own a car in the US.
Yes.
So it's not needed. And it's a very different way of thinking. Yeah. So I think we're done with all of that phase.
Got it.
I suspect most of us will be done with that phase at some point in time.
Absolutely. I think, by the time we are in that about 60 or so, we all have seen a lot in life. I mean, we have traveled and now we've enjoyed the pleasures, and it used to give us a high at some point. I think now it's fine. It's there, it's fine. It's not there, it doesn't matter. I think we've moved on beyond that, right? So I absolutely agree with you. So when you mentioned about doing up your house and all that, so let's just last section. Let's shift inside the house, right? So uh, uh, do we consciously prepare the home now for possible slight deterioration of the physical self? Because that's also equally important when you think about home in terms of making it, although none of us like those words when they refer to ourselves senior and all that, but making it senior friendly is what I'm saying. That, the way everything, all appliances, automation, smart home, not too many hindrances. Anything you consciously, thought about when you did up, or you think what would be necessary, it's worth doing, uh, you know, inside the house as much as, like we talked about the location, we talked about emotional support base, support system, flexibility, all that. Any specific thoughts about
No,
within the
the
house?
answer is a strong yes. And it was not driven by what we need to do for us as active while we are in the active phase, but more because I had dependent parents and I had to make the house friendly for them.
Right.
So right from toilet guards, not in this house, but at least in their house, to anti-skid tiles in the bathroom, to actually removing a bathtub from my bathroom so that they can use it very easily. Yeah, we've done a lot of that. Simple things like wherever there is a raise, like you can see a step here. It was entirely done because I had old people, I had my in-laws coming and going in, so I don't want them to suffer. And I think, and if when I look at my own dad's house in Chennai, I have done a number of things in that house to make it comfortable for them.
Right.
Uh, Double door, grill door, safety features, paying the watchman to take care of them,
Right.
multiple attendants coming and keeping an eye on them. Two, actually making my mother comfortable in calling an SOS carpenter or an electrician or something using her app
Yeah.
in case she needs and we are not there. Yeah, we've done all of that. And I think I'm calling it, for lack of a better word, making it passive life friendly.
Yeah.
I had to do this here to some extent because they have been coming and going out. But if I were to do it for myself, yeah, it's a strong yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No question about it. And I'm just saying it's not just physical. There are also other things like providing a support system for them
Yeah.
in case of an emergency.
Right.
Suppose in the middle of the night if there's an emergency.
Yeah.
Do they have a wherewithal?
Right.
It's simple things like current goes in the middle of the night
Yeah.
and doesn't come till early morning. So, what do they do and how do they live and who do they go with? Yeah, all of that needs to be thought through.
Absolutely.
And I think that's strong, yes.
Correct. Correct. I think, I've also learned for myself so much, observing my parents, right? Because I think uh, we kind of visualize that we could be in that same scenario or situation maybe in 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So whatever we are doing for them, I mean, in some sense, it's staying back for us that, we should also we may not need it today. Sometimes if we are blind to that fact and suddenly that phase of life comes and you've not done it, it might be a little awkward where you're still fumbling around. But having done it for our parents, I think we know what we might need. And it's a good time when you're so-called active, is when you can set yourself up and you're already there for the needs that are there. So yeah, whether it's a smart home, whether it's, I don't know, automation, whatever makes sense for you. Security is a big thing in today's day. I mean, you unfortunately every day, you pick up a paper and you read a story about seniors having got break-ins and an old servant robbing, and also there's always an anxiety that this is the kind of life. So setting yourself up right for all these is worth thinking about and doing as a part of the final deciding about your home location, internal, external, all those things. So
No, and if I may just add to that, it's not just the physical uh, or just the technology piece, like teaching my mother not to share OTP,
yeah,
and there are people doing that. But also things like building an ecosystem around them. And I'll give you an example. Uh, we sponsor the education of the maids and the cooks' kids, my parents.
wow,
Uh, because we just cultivate them for the longer run.
fantastic,
And
amazing.
that just builds the gratitude for them toward you. And if there is an SOS, they can rush to your house.
Yeah,
This on a phone. And those are over and above what they earn. We just do it out of gratis. So I'm just saying, to me, that actions like those also go a long way in building safety net for them.
right.
Uh, Probably when we become 80, we will need that safety net also.
Yeah,
Against, God knows, aliens or AI-driven aliens, I don't know. But hopefully our children will rise to the occasion, and hopefully we would be smart enough to guard ourselves against it too. Yes. But yeah, those are strong, yes. Not just physical, emotional,
and what's the support system of
technology, everything.
correct, correct. Absolutely. So I think, some of the interesting points coming out here, is that a lot of times our thought process is based on what we have seen. And what we have seen, unfortunately, is the past. So say I might have seen a joint family system and things were very different. I mean, your choice of everything was different because there was always somebody around. There were grandparents and there were uncles and aunts and whatever. Obviously, over the years, that's moved on, and we're more nuclear and whatnot. And at least even with the nuclear, people used to be close by. Now everybody's all over the world. I mean, your kids could be in different far-flung corners of the globe. So conversation is leading to one aspect of understanding that a lot of how we are thinking is based on our own experiences and what we have seen. Unfortunately, most of it is the past, right? Because what we have seen is what happened. Like I remember joint families, right? Maybe my parents and my uncles and all, they were in a joint family where we would always have grandparents and uncles and aunts around. And your choice of your decision making around where home should be and all, you didn't factor that, oh, somebody is going to be alone, because somebody was always there. And we know how that system has changed, how we become more nuclear families today. And tomorrow may be something else. I mean, we kind of need to anticipate the shifts that are happening in society and in life in general, right? Much in the same way, there was always trusted domestic help. Sometimes there were people who used to work for generations. Like some person was there, and their kids continued to serve the family, and they were around. So the trust was never an issue, and availability of this kind of help was never an issue. Now the kids, of course, in all these maids and all, they want to not continue this kind of work. They want to go and work in companies and factories or wherever else. It's harder and harder to find that help. Even though we are in India, we say in the US you got to do your own dishes and drive car and whatever. In India we are lucky, but that also is changing, and we don't know how it is going to be tomorrow. So anticipating where life is going to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years, because that's where we are headed. Hopefully, the longevity and all is going to keep us alive for a while. What could be the way in which, we want to structure our home, our dependencies, and all that so that we can manage well. So is a kind of a larger thought which I want everybody to ponder over, especially on the subject that we are talking, right? So it's come out of this discussion, but having discussed a lot, this is one of the thoughts of sort of summary that I had. You have anything to, like, we have had a good conversation, so no more specific question, but any final thoughts around the overarching subject of making the right home decision at this stage of life, thinking about the future as well?
You know, when we were in the corporate life, we heard this statement very often saying that the only thing constant is change. I honestly never realized or knew that even after retirement or after the stage we reached in, that would still be so important. And so I think the one, two, three thoughts. One is that I want to leave you all with. One is that be ready to change, because this is not, nothing is fixed even at this stage. Much as you would want to and love to, but be ready to change. That's the first thing. Second thing, I already spoke about planning it in two boxes: active life and passion life. The third thing I want to leave is with is again a corporate lesson which I find working even now is the power of your network. The reason, why, I mean, when I look at ourselves, and we haven't changed, so even people whom we have met the first time last year have become very good friends, and have been calling us over to their house in Bangalore and so on. So I'm just saying, it's not that we lose the edge or we lose the ability to form newer associations and newer friendships as we grow old. In fact, that stays intact, and use it. You never know how it benefits, where it benefits. Of course, some associations will wither away, new associations will come in, some will become less important, lot more will become more important, and so on. But don't lose that effort to try and forge those associations and those relationships, because that power never goes away. That power is there within us. To put it to use, and you need to invest in it. I mean, it's not just you met once and it just stays. You need to invest in any relationship, just as it's in a wedding or in a marriage or whatever. Even these relationships actually are of great value, and their value actually, we feel it today than what we felt it when we were all, running around with our own active lives. Yeah, I mean, that's really what I wanted to
Fantastic. I like it. So, I mean, while Ashok has, shared a lot of interesting thoughts, I think there is one which is very powerful and coming out strongly even in this last summary, is that investing in network, investing in relationships, investing in friends is a big one for him. And I think I completely buy that. I completely agree. I've always sort of, like, while I've enjoyed being in one place most of my life, in many ways, I've also envied people like Ashok, and especially people with kids of armed forces people who move to many locations. I think it builds a certain strength of character just because you constantly adapting, which, I had the comfort of being in one place and I didn't need to adapt so many times. But you can see it ringing through the fact that he has been at 10 places in 30 years, and everywhere you need to find home. So, maybe it was natural for Ashok and Purnima, or he cultivated that, but that's a necessity, and it's not too late for any of us to invest into that place. So that's definitely one very key part which is coming out of this conversation, amongst many other things that Ashok has shared. So, just the last thought on this subject: there are many aspects to decide where you want to make your home at this point of time in life. If you're in a place which is very noisy, crowded, polluted, don't be fixated that I can't go anywhere because I've been here all my life. Be open. There is a good 20, 30 years of life ahead of you. Consider making a change because it's in your interest. Secondly, in terms of whether it's a, it's a suburb, whether it's a different city, or whether it's a senior home, again, be open. And then there's this whole aspect of being close to kids or differently. Net, I believe that because of so many permutations and combinations around this choice, there is certain tension in deciding what's right. And as they say in a film script, अगर टेंशन है तो मजा है. So it's like that. We are in that state of life that there is tension when we still have to figure an answer. I hope that this has contributed somewhere at least to get your thoughts going. Decision is always going to be yours, but think about it. Where's the home in the next 20, 30 years? Thank you.